Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited for this.
Interview you. So I'm first gonna start with asking, what do you do for a living?
So currently I am working as a dancer at a full nude club. I'm also supporting myself as I work through my nail technology program. So
Beautiful. Love it. How long have you been a dancer for?
It's a great question. I keep leaving and coming back. So I took 2 years off, but prior to that I danced for 18 months, and then I took a year off before that, but prior to that I danced for 2 years.
Fair.
So it's I cumulatively 4 or 5 years at this point, I think.
So what age? Probably
I
25?
didn't start until I was 25.
Okay.
24.
Gotcha.
24.
Gotcha.
I wish I had started earlier, honestly.
Yeah.
But it was definitely something that I was just shy of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What made you get into it?
I had always been curious about it. One of my mom's very good friends growing up was a sex worker. She's a pro dom, and she was also my mom's best friend and my babysitter when I was growing up.
Okay.
And so she strips at the one strip club in a 100-mile radius in the town that I grew up in, and she made my prom dress.
Nice.
And I remember being so impressed not only with her skill at she could sew because she made all of her own costumes.
That's
so that
really
was her
cool.
thing, was she made all of her dance outfits, all of her costumes for her content creation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just remember thinking that I wanted to be as cool as Bella.
That's fair.
And it took me a really long time to come to it and to feel I had the confidence in my body and in my boundaries to be able to start dancing, and also to have a partner who was secure in me doing that and felt
was okay with it.
Yeah, comfortable with it.
For sure. Cool. Can you tell me a little bit about the pros and cons of dancing?
I mean, you see
Of sex work in general. I guess.
You see the best and the worst of people.
Yeah.
I really think that you see men show you their worst selves sometimes in the club, and women too, honestly. I've had terrible interactions with female customers. And so there's always I think that, especially because of the way that our society, and especially with the criminalization of full service work and people tend to look down on sex workers in general, and so I think that they feel very comfortable dehumanizing us a lot of the time, and so obviously that's definitely a con. There are definitely people, last night at the club was just there were so many people who were trying to put things inside of dancers. I had an idiot try to put a dollar bill inside of me at one point, and it's just one of those things that you're you were showing me your worst self.
Yeah, most definitely.
You would not behave this way if you thought of me as a person.
Yeah.
So it can be hard to realize that some customers do not think about you as a person. I think that's definitely a con.
Yeah.
On the pro side, I love being hot for pay. I literally get paid to be sexy, and I love that.
Would you say that it brings more confidence in
yes.
your life? Okay.
And that's been I feel so much more confident in my body, in myself. I also feel the community, especially at the club that I'm at, is so close-knit, so they are very community oriented. I feel the girls there are looking out for each other, are taking care of each other, and I love that. I love the community that I found, and the just watching hot women be very powerful is amazing.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
It's very liberating. It is very empowering. I love I feel much more in touch with my body when I am dancing, and I feel that has helped me in my everyday life to be more in touch with where I am at physically. I also just it motivates me to take better care of myself. I'm already
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I'm doing more self-care now that I'm back to dancing. I'm taking a bath and really stretching and just doing those intentional things. I think is really good for me, and it's great exercise.
It really is.
I feel really good and in shape when I'm dancing regularly.
Yeah.
I love that.
For sure.
Feeling physically strong is nice.
Yeah,
And you have to be strong to dance.
You have to. And I feel like people don't realize that. I feel like people think that it's not that
easy.
hard of a job.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's a
It's
very
not just
difficult
looking
job.
hot.
Yeah,
It's like
no.
truly being very physically active.
Exactly.
And busting ass.
Yeah.
Like, I got all the dances that I sold last night, it was like customers taking me directly off stage, and I was like, no, please I need to catch my breath.
Yeah.
I'm tired, but sure, I'm not turning down the money, but let's
Here
go,
I
bucko.
Yeah. That's funny. So would you say that dancing has added to your life?
100%.
Great. Okay.
Even like on the hardest days, even when I'm like struggling, even when money's hard, I like the community that I've found there, and like the just like the community has been like so good for me, and like I think it's helped me to appreciate like other women in new ways, and like I appreciate like the different beauty of every person who's there, like the different like hustle of everyone, and like appreciating their way of interacting with the world, their way of like coming into contact with customers. It's just, it opened my mind a lot to like other women's experiences, which I really love.
I would agree with that
Yeah.
too. Have you had experiences dancing in other clubs or okay,
I have.
in different states, or
No, I've never danced out of state.
Okay, great.
I've only danced in Colorado.
Gotcha.
But I've danced at most of the major clubs in Denver. So I was at I've danced at both PTs. I've danced at Diamond. I danced at Shotguns. I auditioned at La Beau, but did not get hired there.
Would you say that there's different dynamics within each club?
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure.
I definitely like the Centerfold feels much more, I don't know. There is more community that I've found.
Yeah.
It's just, and it feels very different than some of the clubs, especially like the really like high roller clubs.
Yeah.
I don't vibe with the girls, and I don't really vibe with the clientele.
There's a difference there.
Working in a blue collar club is different, and I really like it, even if I'm not like making the same money that I maybe would make in like one of the more like gentlemen's clubs, quote unquote.
For sure.
It feels like the community is very different.
Yeah. I agree. How has this career affected your mental health, do you feel?
Oh man, I feel like it's so interesting because some days I feel like it can just be a very like highs and lows like industry. It's just like you never know what you're walking into. You never know what the vibe is going to be like. It can be unstable.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like very all over the place sometimes. On the other hand, like I said, I do like, it does force me to be more intentional with the way that I take care of myself.
And your confidence level.
Yeah. There's just like a lot that it makes the customer interactions can be really exhausting.
Yeah.
There can be so much of that's just like, hitting a wall of no's all night can be really hard.
You have to be
and
okay with rejection.
Yeah, and just like, but it's also helped me to, like I suffer from like rejection sensitivity because of my ADHD, and receiving all of those rejections all the time has helped me to find better ways to cope with my rejection sensitivity and to not take that stuff so personally. And so I think that it just like makes me think harder and like work hard to be intentional about my mental health. And I actually really appreciate that.
I get you.
But it also there's like so much uplifting from like other dancers, and I know that if I'm having a hard night, if I'm having a hard day, like whatever it is, I can go in there and like be in community, and that's so good for me.
And I feel like that's I don't want to say that it's rare, but the general consensus is that these women don't care about each other, or they'll fight a lot. And I've heard about it at different clubs and everything. So,
and I've definitely seen it at other clubs.
You've seen it at other clubs, yeah. I've heard many stories.
And it feels like I think from in my perception of it, a lot of it is like when there's more money at stake, there's more competitiveness and like more abrasiveness. I also think a big part of it is like I just don't like the liquor clubs. Girls get messy and drunk and mean to each other and like make bad choices. Yeah. And that's I like working at a liquor free club has been like I tried to go back to the other PTs and I was like, this is exhausting. Jesus.
There's a whole new dynamic in play because
whole other dynamic, and I spend so much time turning down drinks. And like I'm not getting drunk at work, my guy.
Yeah, for sure.
You could tip me the price of the drink.
Yeah. Have you been able to maintain that, I guess, sobriety during your work?
That's not something that I really struggle with.
Yeah.
I have a hard time creating habits, which is really terrible for a lot of things, but is great for drinking. I will have a bottle of wine in the house and forget that I can drink it. I just, even if it's there, I just don't struggle with that. It's never been something that I've had a hard time with. I do, however, like see the culture, and I know that that's not true for everybody. And I think that if I was not already like just not particularly interested in being in an altered state, it would be much more difficult because I know that culture is there, and it's very similar to like the service industry in general. Like you see a lot of the same, like it's very common to like drink and do drugs in the service industry. Like that's how like servers decompress, and I think that that's, you know, when you're working until 4 a.m. that it's hard to stay awake, and like I think that leads to, you know, difficulties with drugs and alcohol, but it's never been an issue for me just because I just don't have an addictive personality. It's not an issue. Look, I struggle with a lot of things. I got a lot of mental health issues. Thankfully, addiction is not one of them, and I feel very lucky in that. But I can see that culture, and I like do try to be aware of it in other dancers and like be supportive in that way.
For sure. Have you, and you don't have to answer this question, but have you done other types of sex work, or has it just been dancing?
I've only done dancing. I've like considered dabbling in like sugaring, and I have considered full service work. The hardest part for me, honestly, is like maintaining a relationship. I'm kind of flaky. And like maintaining the illusion over a longer period of time is just honestly more than I have the energy for. And I feel the same way about content creation. More power to the folks that do it. It's so much work.
A lot of work.
It is so, and like there's a lot of aspects of stripping that are a lot of work, but it is something that I can like put it down at the end of the day and like head home.
For sure. And do other things.
And that's like, I even have a hard time maintaining regulars at the club. I just like, I don't want to give people my phone number. I don't want to talk to you when I'm not at the club. And so that's like a big part of what's kept me from like doing full service work.
I get you. So, and then that leads me into my next question, somewhere in here, basically about like boundaries. Have you been able to maintain your boundaries while you're dancing, or do you struggle? Have you had struggles with that?
I've gotten a lot better at maintaining my boundaries, and also recognizing there was a period of time where I was like really internalizing feeling dehumanized by customers. And I feel like I've just started to let go of that mindset, that it's not like their treatment of me is no longer feels like a reflection of me. It's a reflection of them. And that has helped a lot with like you just setting firmer boundaries. I'm no longer shy about just like listing off my rules before a private dance. And I get my money up front, so if they're an asshole, I get rid of them. I think that, and I also like started thinking about that as like the more boundaries I hold, the like it makes it easier for other dancers to hold boundaries too. If we're all holding boundaries together, if we all have similar rules,
then nobody can think they can get away with
exactly. There's things. No like wishy-washy expectations there.
Yeah, for sure, and that should be the
and that's always my big thing with like I am a huge proponent of decriminalization of sex work.
Mhm.
I think that like full service work should be decriminalized. I think it's a better way to protect the girls who do it, because
Mhm.
criminalization doesn't stop people from doing it. It
Yeah,
just
of
makes it
course.
unsafe.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that like it sets a clearer boundary for dancers.
Yeah.
That like we are not full service workers, and if you want to do that, please do it outside of the club.
Most definitely.
And I think that you see it coming into the club, and you see those boundaries being violated.
Yeah.
And that's when you start getting those like uncertain boundaries, because some girls do and some girls don't.
Mhm.
And I think that if we had safe outlets for the people who are looking for those services, then it would not be such an issue. We would have
For sure.
stronger boundaries in the club.
And do
like,
you think that like adds to the societal stigma of sex work in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people are always like, folks love to have someone to look down on and like to scapegoat, and
Yeah.
there's always going to be like some kind of stigma around sex work, especially in like a deeply religiously shame-based
Yeah.
society. Like
Yeah.
we're founded on so many principles that are like sex shaming.
Yeah.
But I don't think that we'll ever move entirely away from that. There's always going to be some stigma. But if we are protecting sex workers, then I think that the stigma becomes less of an issue.
Yeah.
Because at least nobody can threaten to expose you or threaten to turn you in or threaten that kind of thing.
For sure.
Use the stigma against you.
Yeah.
I think it not weaponizing that stigma. There's always going to be prejudice against sex workers, I think.
I think so.
But I do think that decrim would remove the weaponization of that stigma.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah. I like that. Beautifully worded.